Change the world is what we've been talking about. And says, yet if you're really going to change the world, we discussed first is we have to ask God to use you. We have to ask God to use us. If we don't ask Him, God's ready to use us. But we have to ask. And then we said that after you've asked and you've gotten this identity and you know what it is, you've got to activate your gifts. Like that credit card, it's worth nothing until you call that 1-800 line. But if you call 1-800 for good or bad, it's worth a lot of money. We have to activate that. So now you have most of the tools that you need to actually win the game. Or at least to get in the game and play hard to have a chance at winning. That's a big thing in baseball now. We ask pitchers just to keep us close, to give us a chance to win. But unfortunately, when you're playing in the game, there's some intangibles. There's some things that coaches look for that aren't physical. There's those things that we call heart. We call desire to win. In fact, I learned a long time ago from a coach that many of us know here, and probably some of us don't even know his first name's Frank. But a long time ago, there was that man that taught a saying to us that went sort of like this. He said, that guy's got $1 million body and a half-way attitude. Or something like that. Depended on just how upset Coach was. And he said, what makes a difference is, he says, I need a player that has desire. Well, in that thick North Carolina accent, it wasn't desire, but you had to want. And the best I could spell it is W-A, because it sounds like want, but then it's O-N-T. You got to want. And he wanted someone who wanted more than somebody else. I actually heard once from my high school my baseball coach, and I don't remember where Jim was from, but Jim had a little hint of a southern accent too. And we had this fellow on our team who made the team. I can't remember if Kurt even made the team as a junior. As a senior, Kurt was a backup catcher and wasn't a great ball player, really. But he looked at us at the end of one game. I forget what we had done. Obviously, we probably hadn't won. And he looked at us and he said, you know what, boys, I'm so fed up. He says, what I want, he said, I want 13 Metzlers on my team. Well, Metzler was the last name of this young boy. And we're all thinking, 13 Metzlers, please. I mean, he can't even carry my glove. But the point was that his heart and his desire on that day, when he put him in, when the rest of us were dogging it, was greater than all the skill that the rest of us had. It didn't matter that I was a better hitter, faster runner, and a better fielder. And I can remember almost to this day, at first the anger, that arrogance, which I know surprises you can occur in me. That Janet's not here, but she would be going, yes. The disappointment that I had let him down. I'd let my coach down. He knew that the ones of us on the team who had all the talent didn't come through, and this guy he pulled off the bench came in and just had nothing to lose. Threw it all out there and went for it. And if it hadn't have been for that, there'd been nothing good about that entire game. And then the thought that I had not only hurt my coach, I had disappointed myself, and most of all, I had wasted my God-given ability. On that day, I just wasn't there. And it wasn't just me, it was the other 8 or 9 guys on the field too. So today, we got to truly hope that we have asked God what He's calling us to do. That we've chosen it, we want to activate it. We've chosen the 1-800. We've chosen the cell phone. All those things. And now to to find out what our desire is, to find out what our heart is, to find out how bad we want it. Do we want it more than someone else? Because sometimes the difference is desire. In fact, most people will tell you when they're looking to recruit a kid from high school to college that sometimes the biggest, the fastest kid is not their first choice. But if they find that moderate kid who just seems to work so hard and is in top physical shape, because to get there, that meant they had to dedicate a lot of personal time. I mean, they didn't get in that good shape just for that 3 months of the season. That had to happen long before. They had a desire that was immeasurable, that the coaches will go for that. Because they're measuring that want and that desire. That's what really is going to be the difference in whether we can change the world on poverty. Do we really want to change the world on poverty? Or is it just something that we know is out there and we can give dollars to? I want to share with you, this fellow's walking down the street here. I want you to, he's got all the gifts. He's got the glove, he's got the bat, he's got the arm, he's got whatever he needs. He has all the gifts to meet the needs of these people. I don't want you to think that I really think that you're that oblivious to what's going on. Yet I think there are times that I am, that each of us are in certain situations. You ever watch The Secret Millionaire show on TV? We had DVR'd it a couple times and caught it last night, and one of the persons in there said, you know, I went out and I did this because I knew I just wasn't comfortable out there. I was scared and I needed something to make me go find out. And the biggest thing he found out, he said, more than anything before he gave the money away was, gosh, they were just real people. And that's not true of all of them. There's some bad people out there. But unfortunately, we seem to obsess with all the bad people out there, which is a much smaller percentage than the good ones, believe it or not. It really is. Said last week, when Chris Owens, our Vision Retreat, the facilitator, he met with us, and the question came up about identifying and meeting new people and how to do it. He said sometimes there's a difference when you say, "Yeah, I really understand the needy." That wasn't what he was talking about at the time, but he said, the difference is like this. It's like going to a restaurant and eating Indian food. Apparently he likes that. It's actually a type of food that I really haven't spent much time in doing, but he liked that. He said, that is identifying that there is Indian food, and that it's pretty good. He said, but are you willing to bring it home and make it part of your regular menu, and therefore becomes part of your culture? I thought, wow, what a great description. Actually, I was had a terrible time all week long in trying to remember that, how to put it together that way. And he said, that's what understanding the culture is. That's what it means to open your heart to the needy, is this. Actually, John Wesley described it in this way. He said he believed that to really open the hearts of the needy, you had to experience it. And he said he didn't mean that everyone had to be poor, but it had to be part of your culture. Well, how can being poor be part of my culture if I'm a multimillionaire? Well, being part of your culture means that you actually understand it. You've actually been there. And it has become part of your culture in how you respond to it. That it's something that becomes part of you. This morning, we sent 7 people to Baltimore who I've said are standing side by side with people who are going to leave and return and walk the street for today, and tonight are going to curl up in a cardboard box. Some are going to go back to their homes because they're just lonely and they came there. Some are there because they've got a home and they've got a family, but they're running a little close. It's the end of the month and the food's running short, and they could go to Our Daily Bread this morning and eat for free and therefore have enough food to maybe get through the week. All different needs, but they were all needy. All needy. Wesley actually encouraged his early pastors, he said, to go live among the poor and maintain solidarity along with them. He and his brother Charles, they sometimes acted as arbiters between the poor abused and the early Industrial Revolution. One mayor actually accused the Wesleys of causing much mischief. But they won him to do the cause for doing justice for the people. The Wesleys were keenly aware of poverty, even though they weren't poor. I mean, Wesley was Oxford now. In the end, he ended up dying with almost nothing because he followed his own words. And this was his whole philosophy. You have to understand that Wesley went up the scale really fast at Oxford as a professor. I mean, he doubled his pay year after year. It was absolutely amazing. So he said this, he says, what you need to do with money. And the first thing he said was, if you remember this, we've talked about it in the past, is to make all you can. Because Wesley knew that money was the route to meeting the needs of yourself and others. Without it, you can't get much done. And if you have the ability to make money, John Wesley said, go make it. Go make all you can. And yet, though, live on what you need. Live on enough to give your family a subsistence. Give them a place to live. Give them respectable food. Give them good furniture. Get them a little cable TV. Get them, and not little like, but a little bit of cable. You don't need 5,000. Get them, a video game. They don't need 500 different cassettes to go in it. He said, then I want you, after you made all you can, I want you, and this is a tricky one, to save all you can. Not save all that you have. You save all that you can. And his philosophy was this, that if something happened to you, the primary breadwinner of the family, that there would be enough for them to continue their life at the basic level for a period of time. If you died young, there was no way it was going to last the rest of all their lives. But it was going to carry them on at least for a while. Not everybody gets the best that's made. I joke about that Corvette. The chances are in my lifetime that's not going to happen. that doesn't appear to be part of my life plan at this point? Does that mean that I've missed out on something completely amazing in this world? Don't know. That's what we do with our relationships. Our young people are seeking the perfect relationship. So how many people do they go through finding it? And guess what? Each different relationship changes the standards. You're not going to find anybody who has all of those things. Even though I think Janet's pretty close. Yeah, I know. You'll be calling her, texting. Somebody texted her now, I'm sure. Lisa's texting her now. I know in the back. That's what's happening. But we do that. And Wesley says, no. You just kind of need this. He didn't say you had to be poor, but you only need this. And then the last step was this. He said, then give all you can. And in the end, when Wesley died, he had given everything away, it appears, except the loose change that was in his pockets and his home. He was a professor at Oxford. His salary doubled. Almost every year he was highly respected. But here's what happened. He said, while he was at Oxford, an incident changed his perspective on money. He had just finished paying for some pictures for his room. Apparently he loved art. He went out and he bought big-time art. Now, Wesley lived a life at one point, because he was a professor and he was all of that in a bag of chips as far as the academic world was concerned, that he was there. And he said, and one of his chambermaids, they came to his door. It was a cold winter day, and he noticed that she had nothing to protect her except a thin linen gown. And he reached into his pocket to give her money to go buy a coat, and found that he had too little money left. Immediately the thought had struck him that the Lord was not pleased with the way he had spent his money. He asked himself, will thy master say, well done, good and faithful steward? Thou hast adorned thy walls with the money which might have screened this poor creature from the cold. O justice, O mercy, are not these pictures the blood of this poor maid? So what Wesley did, perhaps this incident in 1731, said Wesley began to limit his expenses. That he would have more money to give to the poor. And the records show that in 1 year, that his income was 30 pounds and his living expenses was 28 pounds. Now in English that was pounds of silver. And so he had 2 pounds in order to give away. The next year his income doubled. He still managed to live on 28 pounds. So he had 32 pounds to give to the poor. In the third year his income jumped to 90 pounds. Instead of letting his expenses rise, and with his income he kept them 28 pounds. And he gave away 62 pounds. In the fourth year he received 120 pounds. They're pretty nice raises, folks. And each and every time he got more, as before he held his expenses to 28, and he gave away 92. Wesley felt that the Christian should not merely tithe, but give away all the extra once the family and creditors were taken care of. Wesley had no children. He believed that increasing with your income, what should rise is not the Christian's standard of living, but their standard of giving. Now, the only way this can happen is to change your heart. The only way to change your heart is stop looking around the needs of yourself, or like the guy in the video just walking around and worrying about your popcorn, but to open your heart to Jesus. In Matthew, we heard this morning that each and every person that we meet is like meeting Him. I will share with you in a short part. That scripture used to drive me insane. Every time I pulled past US 1 or any place and there was a beggar and I drove by them and did nothing, I drove past Jesus. And it took me sitting with another pastor and having him say, how do you do it? I can't meet every need. And he looked at me and said, you're right, you can't. But you're giving here. And what is the church doing? And what you do in your life? Are you taking care of people? There are people in this room who may be taking care of people in their family because they're not doing it they can't do it on their own. Or they're taking care of friends of their family. But what he's asking is not that we have to help every individual, but that we see God in each and every one of them. Tomorrow night, we find out what human trafficking it actually looks like at Arundel Mills and Route 1. Those are needy. The news last night reported about a 14-year-old girl. And the person met with her and they exchanged emails, and finally he encouraged her to run away. And it was after she ran away, before it ever dawned on her, when he tried to force her to have sex for money. Somehow or another she had missed all of that. There were some needs that weren't being met. 2 o'clock this afternoon, we're going to go meet some folks at Lorien. There's folks in our Daily Bread. Just don't look away from the beggar. You know, one of the greatest things that you can do is look that person in the eye and just simply say, not today. But look at them and recognize them as a child of God. Identify them. Open your heart so you know. Yes, that probably wouldn't be me is what I say. I don't know that I'd go beg to do it. I think I'd go find something to do, but I don't know that. The message today is, do we really see them as God sees them? We can't help them all, but we can treat them as if they were Jesus. When did we see you hungry or naked? What's easier to do? To put on a big deal for people that you know? Or to go do something for people that you don't know, and you may very well be right, or blowing their money on an addiction, or just being lazy and not working? That may be true. But you need to think about which is easier to do. Is it easier to give stuff and put on a big display for people who already have plenty? I put myself there. It's a whole lot easier. Big family party, big church dinner, whatever it is. Simply asking you to not just see it, but to open your heart to it. Asking me to do the same thing. But be aware, it's hard to show the love of Christ until you know the love of Christ. And until you know it, you'll never be able to show it. But when you do, it'll not only change you, but it'll change the world. Amen. Let's join in singing our next